Greetings everyone, and welcome to Progressive Discussions. This is Progressive Discussions, and I am your host, James P. Madonna of Megalife 21, the hardest hitting internet talk radio station on the planet, and we are here coming to you live from the Newsletter Censored Research Center in northeastern New Jersey. It happens to be Saturday, March 24th, 2012. We had quite a warm spell this past week, but now it got cool here, and the flowers are out, and the tree pollen and the mold spores are high. So people are sick. People are getting sick. They're wheezing, they're coughing, they're sneezing, and we're having an unseasonably very early spring. And is it global warming? There's a good chance, perhaps, but we are here. Another week has flown by. I would just like to say, last Saturday, St. Patrick's Day, I want to give a report. When I left here to do the St. Patrick's Day special show, which was March 17th, 2012, I went to Pub 46 on Route 46 East in Clifton, New Jersey, and every year they put out free, high-quality corned beef brisket, cabbage, boiled potatoes, carrots, rye bread, whatever, all day and all night. I went there. It wasn't that crowded because I got there, maybe about close to 6 p.m. And I gorged myself. I had like several plates, several heaping helpings of their hospitality. Oh, that's the Beverly Hillbillies. And I gorged myself on delicious, succulent corned beef brisket and cabbage. I did not touch the potato or the carrots or the rye bread because I wanted to maximize my consumption of the wonderful corned beef brisket. I bought 1 pint of Guinness Stout and I nursed it. I took a sip like every 15 or 20 minutes, and I maximized my consumption of the corned beef, which proves that sometimes you can beat the fat cats, you can beat the greedy, big companies, and sometimes you can get something almost for free of high quality. That's all I got to say about my. This is I picked these up at Pub 46. These are fake, of course, like metallic or whatever the hell they're made out of. 4-leaf clovers for good luck, so I stuck them on both sides of me shillelagh. This is an imported blackthorn shillelagh, imported from Ireland. It is a weapons grade shillelagh. I like to wave it around, and it helps me emphasize certain things. There is the other shamrock of authenticity. Okay, now, I'm not Irish, but I like the shillelagh. It's like a gavel. It's like an Irish gavel. Now, I don't have anything to say because it's been a very traumatic and hectic week, but I have something very important to talk about. But it's only one thing. And it will be the title of the show. Revelation chapter 12, verse 9. The book of Revelation in the Bible, chapter 12, verse 9. The whole world is deceived. Now, some of you who are intelligent, and sharp, would pick up on what that means. For those of you that are unaware of what that means, well, just take a look around you at the series of events, what's going on in the United States and the world. You ever hear the old saying, the proof is in the pudding? Well, if you're living in a society, if you're living under a form of government where your political leaders in the capital, could be any country, but in this case, let's take a look at the United States. It's Washington. Your political leaders who who actually should be your servants, public servants, right? Taxpayer paid, and paid very well. Congressmen, senators. You're living under a system that appears, even though they tell you when they run for election that they feel your pain and they care about the mainstream and the middle class and the plight of the poor and the jobless situation and the economy and blah 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 blah. Shed all these crocodile tears and participate in photo opportunities and kiss babies and all that good stuff. Even though they tell you all this when they're running for office, when they get in, they obviously only help the 1%, the elitists, the rich. They do very, very little for the mainstream and the poor. Actually, what they do for you is what is like if your uncle walked up to you as an adult and say, "Here, kid, here's $2. Go buy yourself something. Here's a little something for your troubles." What they do is really insignificant, or nothing at all. Everything's for the rich. The rich do not pay. Not only do the rich do not pay their fair share in taxes, but the rich also do not pay taxes at all, because the system, the right-wing conservative corporatist politicians have arranged it so the rich would get special favor and their families, and the rich won't pay taxes. And where does the tax burden fall? Of course, when Ronald Reagan, in the 1980s, Ronald Reagan shifted the tax burden from the rich to the middle class. That's where it fell back then, and that's where it still falls. So the middle class listened to Republican propaganda. They listened to right-wing conservative propaganda and lies, and they believe that it's the fault of progressive liberals, the tax and spend liberals that the Republicans are always talking about, which is bullshit. This is what happened. It's the GOP, the greedy old party, that arranged it so the little guy gets shafted and the little guy takes on the burden of taxation, and the rich get off scot-free. And Revelation 12:9, the whole world is deceived. Where does that come in? Well, the last election. I'll give you a perfect example. Last November, it was last November, right, sir? Last November,
2010.
When was the
2010.
when did the Republicans take control of the Congress?
2010.
2010. November of 2010, okay, which was last year. No, it wasn't. It was 2 years ago.
2 years ago.
November of 2010, you, mainstream America, most likely the middle class, or whoever made it their business to go out and vote, you voted in a Republican corporatist Congress, which sealed the fate,
Tea Party Congress.
the Tea Party Congress, which sealed the fate of the little guy and the demise of the United States in terms of, the economy, job market. The 1% seems to be doing quite fine right now until everything really collapses, but they will find their way to survive. But that's what you did. And despite all the proof that's in the pudding, despite the fact that it's obvious the jobs are being outsourced, it's obvious the unemployment rate is higher than what Washington tells you it is, and it's obvious the economy is totally in the abyss. It's shot. But despite that, you continue to believe the right-wing lies, and you voted in a Republican Congress who is only for the rich, the 1%, the top 30%, whatever you want to call it. And this is why the whole world is deceived in the end times. It's in Bible prophecy. The whole world is in fact deceived. So who do you have to blame? Who should you blame when you cry about your home getting foreclosed and you getting laid off from your job because your company is too greedy to pay you, the pension and everything and take care of you and your family. So who do you blame when all this stuff happens? There's no jobs. Republicans always say, get a job, get a job, get a job. We don't believe in welfare, get a job. Well, there's no jobs unless you are very qualified and you have tons of experience and you have lots of degrees and certificates and you're lucky enough to get selected to go to the interview and you get hired. If you're not in that category, there are no jobs out there.
Or
So,
you have cronies.
huh?
Or you have cronies.
Oh, you know somebody. Like, for instance, a municipal job. A cushy municipal job where you don't kill yourself for too many hours.
What about Robert Rubin and Larry Summers and Timothy Geithner and guys like that who just go back and forth from the private sector to the public sector, back and forth, back to Goldman Sachs, then they work in government, get their laws passed so that their criminal activities are no longer considered criminal, etc.
Right.
Cronies. Crony capitalism.
Cronyism.
Back and forth.
If I get elected, and you help me get elected, and you fund my campaign, then one hand washes the other, and both hands wash the face, like Ralph Cramden or Ed Norton said in The Honeymooners. And then when the person gets elected, they forget about the crocodile tears and the baby kissing, and I feel your pain, and they owe something.
Yeah.
They have to pay the piper, right?
To the bribers.
The piper. So that's what happens. Cronyism, crony capitalism, crony politics. It happens on a lower scale, right?
Yeah. Well,
it happens in towns,
towns and cities, and
counties,
all the way up.
Municipalities, or what they call here in northeastern New Jersey, boroughs. A borough is what's the difference between a borough and a town? Same shit.
Just the name.
Just the name.
Just semantics, I guess.
Yeah. So anyway, that is it. The whole world is in fact deceived in the end times. It's prophesized, and all you flag-waving Yankee Doodle dandies, right-wingers, who keep on saying God blesses America, God bless America, and don't listen to the pinko, commie, whatever, subversive, liberal propaganda. Don't listen to us, and they wave the flag and talk about God. Well, how could they talk about God if God always tells the rich to help and give to the poor, and they don't like to do that? So the only way to create jobs is demand. You have to have a demand, and you have to, in order to build the economy, you have to put money back into the wallets of the true consumer, which happens to be the little guy, the middle class, and the poor. Not the elitists. They are not the true consumers. That's it. That's the only way to do it. And the United States and Great Britain are modern-day descendants of the cursed lost tribes, the cursed lost tribes of ancient Israel, which is Ephraim and Manasseh. And of course, the United States was a colony of the British Empire, which they lost completely. Part of the curse. Do you think the United States is any different in terms of God's curse? It's all yours, Reverend Bill. If you want to comment on what I just said, briefly, or however you want, and then you can commence with the newspaper articles.
We will go right into the newspaper articles.
So I pretty much covered it well.
What you wanted to cover, yes.
No, but it was a vital point to make.
Well, the vital point to make is that we've been going down this right-wing road for the last 30 years, and look what it's gotten us. But people tend, as my new article shows, they tend to forget how we got here. They tend to forget who to blame.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So in the new article, there'll be some people taken to task. to show how we got here and who's to blame. And it's not all, Republicans. It's all of them. All the corporatists amongst us. Okay? Who owe the big boys.
Mm-hmm.
It is fair to state that Republicans can be defined by two attributes: the supposed defenders of our Constitution and the religious right. The remaining Republicans seeking the GOP nomination are busy falling all over themselves, claiming each is the better Christian. It would do them all good to read Article 6 of the United States Constitution, which specifically says no religious test shall be required as a qualification to any public office under the United States. So being a good or a bad Christian is not a requirement for office. So if any of them were elected president, they should remember they are president of all the U.S. citizens, Christian and non-Christian. Please, enough already about your beliefs in a higher power, and spend more time on the specifics of what you would do to make all Americans' lives better. Huh?
Sounds pretty good to me.
Yeah. Me too.
Very good. You got a next article?
Why do I feel the Taliban have reached our shores despite our claim of removing their influence in the countries in which our soldiers are now stationed?
Mm-hmm.
The Taliban are notorious for clamping down on moderate Muslims by attacking women first.
Always blaming women, huh?
Women must dress and behave in approved manners that are dictated by the religious conservatives who think theirs is the only true interpretation of the laws of Islam.
Well, they're doing that in the United States, too. The religious right-wing fundamentalist conservatives, they always seem they always seem to attack women first.
No different.
They're doing the same. Rush Limbaugh and the rest of them.
In America, we are now seeing the same behavior coming from the mostly male-dominated religious right. They start with the curtailing of women's hard-won rights to contraception and abortion. Soon, women will be told what and what not to wear. Wake up, American women. Before you realize it, you will become second-class citizens again. The American version of the Taliban will chip away, slowly and surely, at your rights. And before you know it, they will declare they have all the religious knowledge that you lack. Therefore, theirs are the true laws to follow. As I am an older woman, and this is a letter I'm reading here, I have seen how hard women have had to fight for their right to control their own bodies. Now it is up to you, young women, who will be most affected, to let your voices be heard loudly and clearly.
Wow. So far, these first two articles are like right on the money.
Uh-huh.
All right. Very true. Very true. There's a pattern here with right-wing religious nuts.
Nuts in any country.
In any faith, in any
Yeah.
country, any culture.
Yeah.
They're all over. They were in the Catholic Church during the Inquisition.
Well, they're still there now. I mean, you know.
You know, they're just not putting people to death.
Hopefully.
Hopefully.
Some of them they are, because if you're denying contraception to certain women who maybe have a child and then the problems ensue or something of that nature, and they could die, and maybe an abortion would have saved them or something. Yeah, you could say that they may be putting some people to death.
Do you know that I was reading an article on Facebook from Natural News, and they were saying that the government or the Obama administration was something about them wanting to pass a law that offers sterilization for young American college women, for young females if they wanted to be sterilized. And then when I read that, I immediately thought of the conspiracy theory with Jesse Ventura episode when they talked about the fact that they're putting something in the bottled drinking water, spring water, to slowly make people sterile because they don't want the poor to reproduce. They don't
and take up their resources.
The masses. They don't want the masses of mainstream and the poor to reproduce because we, the little guys, quote unquote, are using up supposedly their natural resources. The earth's wealth supposedly belongs to the elitists, the fat cats. So they don't want us using it up. So they want to sterilize the poor and, of course, the people who depend on social services. And so they can't have any more babies. So they phase us out. They phase the little guy out, right?
Yeah. Of course, Haggai in the Bible says that the gold and the silver and the earth belongs to God.
I gotta
the wealth
look
of the earth.
I like that. I gotta look that up. It's in Haggai. Yeah.
While campaigning for governor, Christie promised to deal with the incredibly excessive amount of property taxes paid by New Jersey homeowners. Well,
it's true.
He sure dealt with it by eliminating about 80% of the annual property tax rebate that previous governors provided. And by the way, those rebates were for the elderly and the disabled.
Nice guy.
Mm-hmm. Christie has effectively increased the average New Jersey homeowner's property taxes by a whopping 12 to 15%.
Interesting.
And now, Christie, in his proposed state budget, wants to reduce the state income tax, with the vast majority of the reductions going to the wealthy, instead of providing property tax relief.
So in fact, he went back on his campaign promise for reducing property taxes on the middle class.
Yeah, absolutely.
So he's a liar for hire.
Whoa. He'd probably call you an idiot or a jerk for saying that. What's the matter with you?
Well, the proof is in the pudding.
Hey, he might eat the pudding.
Yeah, I saw...
and we wouldn't be able to see proof.
I saw a low-budget horror movie on Sci-Fi Channel one time about an ogre, and it was built very much like Christie.
Republicans throughout the United States are adept at taking public funds and diverting them to the wealthy.
Wow.
So no one should be surprised by Christie's actions.
Corruption.
Christie also campaigned as Mr. Clean Government. But it turns out that, as evidenced by, among other things, his filling many of the port authority's very lucrative jobs with political allies, it's dirty business as usual. Christie was elected governor largely due to the fact that voter turnout, especially that of the Democrats, was quite low in 2009. It can only be hoped that New Jersey voters show some enthusiasm in 2013 and hold Christie accountable for his dismal performance. And guess what?
What?
We have some more on Mr. Christie.
I know, I see his fat pictures of his... photos of his fat face there.
Before he was sworn into office, Governor Christie signaled his brand of leadership would be brusque by Trenton's political standards. While transitioning from candidate to governor in late 2009, Christie, the first Republican to win statewide in over a decade, called a Democratic lawmaker's bill garbage and political lying.
Garbage? So it's garbage to have compassion for the poor and make the rich pay for it?
Then he characterized a Democratic political appointee as probably the singular most unqualified candidate you could find. Now, those types of blunt and unvarnished comments, including most recently calling a former Navy SEAL who repeatedly interrupted him an idiot and a jerk, have become commonplace. Mm-hmm. Videos of these Christie moments typically land you on YouTube. Many posted on the governor's official channel by his staff and have helped launch the governor into the national spotlight. Christie's supporters say the governor is popular because his approach oozes leadership.
Yeah, he oozes something. It's not leadership.
Which is something New Jersey sorely lacked during Democrat John S. Corzine's time in office from 2006 to 2009.
Another elitist.
When even members of his own party openly bucked the former Wall Street executive.
Mm-hmm. He was affiliated with Goldman Sachs, I heard.
Yeah, he led it.
Sure.
He was the CEO there for
So
a while.
I wonder why he ran as a Democrat then, if he was such an elitist and a billionaire.
Because he got away with it.
Oh, because it was a place.
Because Democrats are the same. You know? But Democrats suggest his behavior is more suited for reality television than the governor's office. They've asked for apologies, but have yet to receive one from the governor. Here are some examples of the colorful comments Christie has made since taking office in early 2010. In 2010, he said to a newspaper columnist, "You must be the thinnest-skinned guy in America because if you think that's a confrontational tone, you should really see me when I'm pissed."
Yeah, he takes a tantrum when he doesn't get his way, like a baby.
The fact of the matter is, this is who I am, and everybody plays to their part.
Yeah, right.
To a heckler in California, Christie said, "It's people who raise their voices and yell and scream like you that are dividing this country." To a teacher at a town hall style event, "Well, you know what then? You don't have to do it. Teachers go into it knowing what the pay scale is." So Mr. Christie has no problem with paying teachers crap.
Yeah, but I'm sure Christie did not get paid crap when he was a district attorney, right?
No.
Was he a district attorney?
Just DA, yes.
DA. I'm sure when he graduated from law school and passed the bar, right, and became an established attorney, I'm sure he wanted good pay. So why not other respectable professions?
Like teaching is probably one of the most respectable, and it doesn't get any respect at all.
Yeah, because you're developing America's future.
Yeah.
Good parents and
Teachers.
great teachers, actually. Yeah, good parents and good teachers equal good, solid, normal, well-adjusted adults, American citizens,
And workers.
and workers, and honest people. Okay, and they don't grow up to become corrupt politicians.
To reporters speaking about Senator Loretta Weinberg, Democrat of Teaneck, I mean, can you guys please take the bat out on her for once? To a teacher at a town hall style event, if what you want to do is put on a show and giggle every time I talk, then I have no interest answering your question. To a parent on a call-in television show, first off, it's none of your business. I don't ask you where you send your kids to school. Don't bother me about where I send mine. But she was trying to point up that he sends his to private school.
Yeah, because he can afford it.
Right.
And he has probably the finest health insurance money can buy. And he has probably more than one vacation home that belongs to him and his family. And his retirement is all taken care of. And on top of all that, on top of him being a millionaire, from what I understand, he's getting what, $175,000 a year for being governor?
Somewhere around that.
Like similar to Congress and the Senate in Washington.
And all the perks.
And then what about they get a pension too when they retire,
Pension
right?
too, yeah.
Pension for life?
Yeah, you see, nobody's running around trying to cut their pensions, is there? But they want to cut the pensions in the automobile industry and all the other hard-fought union, hard-fought things that they've won over the years. Their pensions.
They want the poor and the middle class to make sacrifices. People like
exactly
austerity. Conservatives like Christie want the little guy to sacrifice.
And all this comes about for one reason: lack of revenue. And you know why there's a lack of revenue, don't you? Because the rich have not been paying their fair share in the last 32 years now.
And why should the churches carry the burden of responsibility for things like running food pantries for the homeless when there can be multiple millions of dollars available to help America's poor and needy if the rich were only taxed?
Well, the fact of the matter is,
if the rich pay tax. So why should the churches, who depend on donations, run out of compassion, try to run programs which they barely can do to take care of the poor?
The fact of the matter is, there should be no poor in America.
Mm-hmm.
And that fact is pointed up very clearly down in Florida, where there are 17,000 veterans living in the woods. In tents.
Disgraceful.
Disgraceful.
Despicable beyond words. I know Dr. Gary Null, bless his heart, he did a video series interviewing them down there, and it's so sad. Oh, I mean, people who put their lives on the line.
Exactly.
So corporatists and so oil companies and war profiteering mongers, right? Can capitalize on the war, and these young men and women put their lives on the line and possibly come back with body parts missing, and they have to live in a tent in the woods.
Yeah, so
in the United States.
We cannot take care of our veterans. I mean, that is a to use a benign word, a shame for a nation.
It's shameful. It's despicable. It's disgraceful. I mean, even in Lakewood, New Jersey. Poor people in the United States of America should not have to live in tents, and not have this town of Lakewood threaten to evict them from the woods.
Well, you know what, Mr.
Oh, what a luxury it is to live in the woods in a tent.
Mr. Bloomberg over in New York.
Mm-hmm.
Well, now he wants to make, and you know this is not the real reason. He wants to stop foods to food pantries, feeding the homeless, and etc., because he wants good food to be given to them. You know.
Who's going to give it to them?
Yeah, exactly.
So he's doing the same thing Christie did in New Jersey, and they're both Republican. Where is this good food going to come from?
It ain't. That's just the excuse. What he wants to do is stop feeding them, period.
It's part of the genocide, maybe.
Exactly.
To kill off the poor.
Whatever.
Sterilize the little guy.
But that's what it is.
Kill them off.
You know?
So,
you don't want them with too much salt or trans fats.
Oh, really?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Is that so? Yeah, well, that's just an excuse.
That's correct.
The real reason is just evil, wicked greed. And the fact that money is their God. God is not their God, even though they tell you they're real Christians. They're lying. Money is their god, and the bank is their church.
Yep.
And it's the white horse of the. It's part of the white horse of the apocalypse, right? The false prophet, the false prophet,
religion.
false religion.
Well, it's all hypocrisy.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he don't want to
close the food pantries.
They don't want to pay for the food anymore. I guess
Well,
it's embarrassment to have
Yeah.
homeless people in your
Oh,
city,
really?
in your town.
Well, how did they get to be homeless?
Oh,
It's embarrassing to have them. They call them what? Vagrants?
well, they used to in the old days.
Vagrancy?
Or if they find, there's a story of.
They arrest you?
There's a story that Gary Knoll tells about a guy, a veteran, sitting in a veterans park on a veterans bench, and he gets a ticket.
How's he going to pay the ticket if he's poor? So
Well, the point of it is, what the hell? That's his right to sit on that stinking bench.
So they'll either arrest him for vagrancy, or they will arrest him for not paying the ticket for being a vagrant, and then he'll have shelter. It'll be in a jail. He'll have shelter.
But then they can put him to work for slave labor.
Enslaving the poor.
Yeah.
Well, isn't the mainstream working for chicken feed while the cost of living is getting higher and higher? Isn't that a form just short of slave labor?
Well, of course, because in the last 32 years, where they're allowing the rich not to pay their fair share, they're also the wages have not grown. So,
Oh, okay. I just want to, before we break for the Reverend Dr. William J. Eisenman's gastronomic delight known as lunch, followed by high green tea, I want to salute a fine, respectful, popular Mr. Reverend Brown of the city of Patterson for running his food pantry for the homeless. And also there are fundraisers going on for the flood victims from last fall's Hurricane Irene, where Passaic County and Patterson really did not get much or any help at all, really.
Wonder why.
Yeah. The money was allocated somewhere else. Right? The Reverend Brown, the good Reverend Brown, and
or didn't come in because of tax cuts.
Tax cuts?
Yeah, for the rich.
For the rich. There you go. So the little guy suffers. Okay, Reverend Brown, I salute you with my shillelagh. Okay, Reverend Brown of Patterson, New Jersey, for his food pantry project. And oh, by the way, the video is on the internet right now. The Renaissance man Ken Create auditioned and performed at the historic Patterson, New Jersey Museum, which is at America's newest national park, the Great Falls Historic District, where I think it's the second largest waterfall in the United States, in Patterson, New Jersey, Silk City.
Cool.
Newest national park. He performed, and it's there on the internet under Megalife 21. So we are back. While my co-host and mentor, the Reverend Dr. William J. Eisenman, is partaking in his gastronomic delight known as lunch, of course, followed by high green tea, I will banter. And, when Dr. Bill swallows his food, he puts in his 2 cents as well. Now, before I do promo, actually, let me get promo out of the way. Hold on. Let me get promo out of the way. All right. Now, this gentleman right next to me here is a self-portrait of the Reverend Dr. William J. Eisenman, because the Reverend Dr. William J. Eisenman is a fine watercolor artist. You can see the William J. Eisenman collection of fine watercolor art by going to Google or YouTube and typing in William J. Eisenman collection, and you will see the slideshow of his work. The slideshow gets updated often. I have not done it yet because I haven't had the time, but I will. Or you can check out the William J. Eisenman Facebook profile, and hopefully his album is public. Or you can also go to, even though it's not complete, you can go to newslettercensored.com, and there are samples of his work there. If you see a personally signed watercolor painting by William J. Eisenman that you like, send him an email, and if the painting is available, the bidding starts usually at $500, but make him a good offer, and you will get, with the purchase of the painting, an annual subscription to Censored. But make him a good offer. Now, speaking of Censored, this is, and of course you see this every week, the backbone of our entire organization, and the very best way to be a part of our organization, and the very best way to join our organization, is to get your free annual subscription to Newsletter Censored with your gift to support this work. This newsletter was founded in 1977 by my co-host and mentor, the Reverend Dr. William J. Eisenman. It contains the 5 taboos of American life, which is politics, religion, health, human sexuality, and child rearing. There is more information in this newsletter than there is on our websites or on our talk shows. This is the foundation of our entire organization. This is how you join us. Okay? Get Newsletter Censored now. With your gift to support this work, you need Newsletter Censored. Newsletter Censored will teach you how to defeat a conservative, and will also guide you in the end times. It contains the political analysis at the beginning by William J. Eisenman, PhD, followed by, if there's room, tidbits, which is current news topics, followed by The God Project by William J. Eisenman, Doctor of Divinity, which shows you what the Bible really has to say, not what right-wing fundamentalist conservative religious nuts tell you what the Bible says and try to rewrite the Bible. He will explain to you what the Bible really says. And last but not least, Sexuality, a Holistic Approach by William J. Eisenman, PhD. If you go to newslettercensored.com, click on the printable order form, and with your gift to support this work, get your free annual subscription to Newsletter Censored. At the Newsletter Censored website.com, right? You will also see Dr. Bill for President. He is running as a progressive independent for the 3rd time, I believe. And Dr. Bill will show you how we need to take corruption out of politics by taking the money out of politics, and he will also teach you how to write in a candidate. And there's nothing like it, man, nothing like it. And if you go to YouTube, or even if you Google it, and you type in Censored on Demand Archive Classics, or The God Project on Demand, you will be able to hear all of the past classic archive readings of Newsletter Censored, the political analysis, and the God Project. So if you go to, actually, we have the 2 playlists, video playlists, are on the Cyber Church of God, which happens to be on our Internet Talk Radio station, which is located, the link is located at the top of newslettercensored.com. And if you go to Cyber Church of God, you will see the video playlists. So, like with the God Project on Demand, Sunday at church can be any day of the week and at any time. And you can just pause it if you need to pause it and go back to it and continue listening to it, it's on video. You know, as well as Progressive Discussions. But Progressive Discussions, our show right now, we only did the video portion. When did we start doing it? A year ago?
Ooh, I don't know.
I don't know. I mean,
Got to be more than that if it's like 100 and some discussions.
well, if it's over 100, yeah, it's like
One a week.
it's like this might be 112 or 111. I forgot, but there's definitely well over 100 Progressive Discussions. But most of them, the early years, the early Progressive Discussions, were only on radio, which is played every Friday, starting at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Today, of course, Holistic Health Talk with yours truly, James P. Madonna, is on Saturday. And then the God Project is on tomorrow, Sunday, starting at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, till 11. But the point is that you don't miss anything, because if you go to Censored On Demand Archive Classics, or you go to the God Project On Demand, you can listen to it at your leisure. And if you need to pause it, or you need to leave the house, you can always go back to it, and you can listen to the same reading over and over again, and it's great. It's like on demand, and they're both by, the voice that you will hear is the Reverend Dr. William J. Eisenman, who founded Newsletter Censored in 1977. So that is the promo. And of course, I mentioned before your lunch about the Renaissance Man Can Create, and myself had a very important meeting with the director of the Paterson, New Jersey Historic Museum, Mr. Giacomo Di Stefano, and we are making arrangements to have theatrical productions done at the in the large room. It's like an auditorium in the museum, which is at the Great Falls Historic National Park District, which is America's newest national park, the Great Falls of Paterson, New Jersey. And that's a recent event. So this spring is officially the kickoff, the first season of America's newest national park. And what better way to start than by having the Renaissance Man Can Create be a part of it with his Let There Be Light entertainment. Now, speaking of his gospel variety talent show, and speaking of what we were talking about at the beginning of the show, Bible prophecy, and the title, which is The Whole World is Deceived, Revelation 12:9. I want to talk about the false prophets, the white horse of the apocalypse. We have some famous false prophets today on TV, duping desperate, perhaps lonely, and people who have reached rock bottom in their lives, desperate people who foolishly send these crooks, these charlatans, all their money, because they feel that by tithing to these men, and I use that term loosely, by tithing to these men, that they will receive blessings from God, which is not what tithing is about anyway, because Dr. Bill explained to me Wednesday about tithing, and tithing is not giving 10% of your bank account to some dude who promises you that you're going to receive bountiful blessings from God. These people are charlatans. They use the Bible and they use Jesus' name as a way to dupe you, to
get at your wallet,
to dupe you, and to cause you to part with your money, your life savings, or your hard-earned money. These people are snake oil salesmen. They're charlatans. They're crooks. I'm talking about people like Peter Popoff, which in itself is a very comical last name. And then Joel Osteen.
Sounds like a chess player.
Peter Popoff.
The Grandmaster, Popoff. Yeah.
and
Russia.
Joel Osteen, and why do I mention the both of them? Maybe even Benny Hinn, but I'm not too familiar with Benny Hinn. I know Benny Hill, used to hit the old man on it. Anyway, why do I mention Joel Osteen and Peter Popoff? Well, they have one thing in common. They both speak with very big, saccharine sweet Cheshire cat smiles that never disappears. And
Like the Joker.
like the Joker from Batman. And they don't talk about scripture or about salvation, about the end times, about the poor, about having compassion and giving to the poor. They don't talk about any of that stuff. All they talk about is how God wants you and everybody else to be rich and wealthy and to become richer and richer and get more money. All they talk about is money. They try to sell you their books about how God wants you to be rich. And then after Peter Popoff has his hand up in the air with the peroxide blonde chick sitting next to him, I think it's his wife, he's got his hand up in the air and he's praying in Jesus' name for everybody who's watching. Then he turns around and he tries to sell you his holy blessed spring water, which is supposed to change your whole life. If you send him a fee, an ample donation for this spring water, you're supposed to get a blessing from his water. And then Joel Osteen does the same thing. Money, 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 riches, riches, riches. Oh, God found me the perfect parking space when I was looking for one. And he's selling his books also about riches, making money. To me, this is the false prophet from the white horse of the apocalypse, the false church. And that's it. I just feel that these people that watch these men and send them money must be very, very desperate, as well as being foolish.
Yeah. So, when you send your tithe, you are supposed to investigate the person, the church, or whatever you're sending your tithe to.
Or the charity.
So in other words, when you are doing your investigation,
Right.
you will not, I have not seen any one of these Christians say that they do not derive their Christianity from the Bible. So, what you do with your investigation is to check what they say and the Bible. It's very simple.
Don't take a man's word for it. Don't take your pastor's word or the TV evangelist's word. Look in the Bible and verify it. But do these TV evangelists mention scripture and where to find what they talk about and prove that it's in the Bible? Prove all things, hold fast that which is good. Thessalonians. Do the evangelists do this? And I say no, because you do not get a Bible study and education from a TV evangelist.
No, because you won't find their stuff in there. That's what I'm saying.
No, not at all.
They're probably talking about heaven and hell. They're probably talking about immortal souls. They're probably talking about all of this contraption stuff that has no bearing at all with the Bible.
Yeah, they feel like a lot of these evangelicals feel, is that you have an immortal soul that will fly out of your body and get raptured up and go somewhere, like another dimension where it has to wait, either a place of torment or pleasure, or paradise rather, where you will have to wait for the judgment and then the resurrection of your physical body and the soul joining with the physical body into perfectly glorified body and blah blah blah. And they also think that actually I was told recently that I mentioned what you said about, if we have an immortal soul, then why do we need a resurrection? And the individual said to me that when Jesus was on the cross, he said to the guy next to him something about, don't worry, today we will be in paradise. Today we will be, today.
You will join me.
Today, the word today, we will be in paradise. And then there's the other thing.
He didn't mean today.
Absence from the body is one with the Lord.
If he would have meant today, then where was he? He was in 3 days in the tomb. It was a prophecy.
He wasn't resurrected
Scripture.
Right away. So
That's
how could
correct.
it be today?
Right.
Because he did not ascend into heaven until he left the tomb, right?
Correct.
The resurrection. So these specific Christian organizations that emphasize a certain part of the Bible, like for instance, you have people that are just that like to emphasize the writings of Paul, the Apostle Paul. They call themselves the Dispensation of Grace people. They believe in the in the immortal soul that flies out of the body, and they believe that there is a sort of Dante's Inferno, a place of torment where you have to wait until judgment, and they believe that if you do very good works on earth, that you will get favor in heaven. You will be placed in a much nicer neighborhood in heaven. And they say that once you're covered by the blood of Christ, once you are repent and you are saved,
Baptized,
yeah, that you are automatically will be forgiven, and you won't take part in the tribulation. You'll be raptured up, and this is what they think.
Well, the rapture, that what they call the rapture. The rapture is when Jesus is descending. The elect are raised from the dead in the twinkling of an eye, given their spirit bodies, and they rise to join Jesus as he is descending. That's what they call the rapture. But only the elect are raptured up.
144,000.
Correct. Not these people calling themselves Christians and everything and all over the world, or like these this series of end time books where say, oh, one will be driving and he will be raised up, and the others in the passenger seat, oh, the car will go crashing because this guy was raised up.
Yeah.
Somewhere in the world. Well, that ain't going to happen. And of course, at the time of the descent of Jesus, there will be a World War III going on. And the armies will be there watching this occurrence. And they will regard this as an alien invasion.
Mm-hmm.
Thinking that this alien invader is the Antichrist.
Mm-hmm.
And they will want to fight him. And they will try to fight him at Jerusalem, when he goes to Jerusalem to set up the ruling government during the millennium.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, Jesus will take care of them, shall I say?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Well, getting back to false prophets and the white horse of the apocalypse, would you consider the lying a conservative Tea Party lying to the American people, would you consider that to be a form of false prophet?
If they claim to have some sort of religious will to do that, yeah.
Which they do, because they mention it, that they're
all false,
they're
yes.
Close to God, yes.
Know them by their actions, not their words. You got to know people by what they do, not by what they say. Mm-hmm. This goes back to what you were saying about all these politicians. Fatso here included.
Christie.
When he was running for office, he said all these other things. when he got into office, he did all these other things.
He did something else.
Yeah.
Like, for instance, even a Democrat like Barack Obama, wasn't he talking a lot about health care reform and the public option? Well, in his campaign?
Once upon a time.
Once upon a time. You see what happened to that.
Yeah.
There's no public
and
option.
Now it's going before the Supreme Court.
What, health care reform?
The mandate, to see if the mandate is constitutional. The mandate where it says that you all have to buy health insurance.
Yeah, buy with what?
Well, supposedly, and I haven't read this thing completely, supposedly the poor will be taken care of. You know, with money from the government or something to pay for theirs. But anybody who can pay for theirs is going to be forced, just like we are forced in New Jersey here, to have automobile insurance.
Well, if you are lucky to still have your full-time job and your income happens to be adequate, not bad, and you still have your job, or if you are one of the top 30% in the country, you can surely afford to pay for your not totally pay for it in 100%, but you can either pay in full if you happen to be wealthy, or make, I don't know, between 100 250,000 a year. You could probably afford to pay for the whole thing.
I'm sure that 30% has their own insurance.
Yeah, or if you're just a middle class person who still has a good full-time job, you can
and got your health insurance from your boss,
from your employer. You could. That's no problem. If you have a good plan, whatever company it is, and your employer contributes to it, and so do you, fine and dandy. But as far as the low-income people and the poor goes, I would say a modified Medicare system that's not ripped off,
single payer,
that's not being ripped off like they have been doing to Medicare. They should be ashamed of themselves. Who did this? Doctors,
hospitals,
American doctors and hospitals,
all kinds of places.
I would say a modified Medicare system would be probably the best way to deal with health care for the poor. But but anyway, tomorrow will be the second Honest Craft Beer Review Internet Talk radio show with the founder and beer expert and connoisseur, Mr. John Starodomsky, and our personal beer consultant, Mr. Red Rooster, will be calling in also. And I believe the topic of the second show will be beer whores, which is people who give great reviews on high-quality craft microbrew beers because they're being paid off in beer. The companies will send them a case or 2 cases or whatever of their beer, and they turn around and give a great review, which is the dishonest review, and that's why we call them beer whores.
I see.
We'll be discussing that. But anyway, back to the articles.
Hey!
Hi-oo!
All right, we got to finish up that Christie one here.
Yeah.
One of his great lines here. To sunbathers on the eve of Hurricane Irene. Get the hell off the beach! You're done! You've maximized your tan!
What about telling him to get away from the buffet table? He's maximized his body weight.
Well, how come they didn't mistake him for a beached whale?
I would have thought he was a beached whale that suddenly was resurrected and started talking. A very loud one.
To hecklers in New Hampshire. Really, something may go down tonight, but it ain't going to be jobs, sweetheart.
So he even is a bully in other states where he has no jurisdiction
and no business.
New Hampshire.
He was probably there stumping for the Mister.
Yeah, Mitt Romney, the guy who practically tortured his dog by driving 12 hours with the dog on the roof of the car. But Christie has no jurisdiction in other states, so he better watch himself. Anyway.
To reporters, speaking about Assemblyman Reed Gassiora, Democrat in Mercer County. Yet you have numbnuts like Reed Gassiora,
Yeah.
who put out a statement comparing me to George Wallace and Lester Maddox. Come on, guys. At some point, you've got to be able to call BS BS.
Well, he's big enough to have swallowed George Wallace and Lester Maddox.
To a former Navy SEAL, current law student at a town hall style event, let me tell you something. After you graduate from law school, if you conduct yourself like that in a courtroom, your rear end is going to get thrown in jail, idiot. I tried to be patient with the guy. Damn, man, I'm governor. Could you just shut up for a second? To reporters speaking about the exchange with the former SEAL, current law student,
Right.
just because he was a Navy SEAL doesn't give him the right to be a jerk.
No, but just because Chris Christie's the governor, I guess that gives him all the rights to be a jerk.
Seems the way it is.
Very one-sided. I have a feeling Chris Christie was a very spoiled, chubby little child. That he got everything he ever wanted, and if he didn't get it, he took a tantrum.
Seems to be that way.
I have a feeling, I could picture him spitting his pablum.
His venom.
His pablum is baby food, right?
Black Mamba.
No, he's definitely an ogre, without a doubt, and a political bully. And man, he reminds me of. Every time I watched a movie about the Roman Emperor Nero, they always had some fat guy who was like enjoying himself while Rome burned.
Yeah.
And how Rome burned, if it's all stone and marble and granite, is beyond me. Anyway, continue.
Weighing up to 20 pounds, with orange teeth, and an appetite that can reduce wetlands to barren mud flats, the South American nutria is spreading across North Carolina and Virginia.
It's a big rodent. It's
and
like
wildlife officials, trappers, and even conservationists say the critter that looks like a beaver and eats like a hog has got to go.
it originally. It's not indigenous to the swamplands of southern United States. It's indigenous to South America. Yeah, they were hunting nutria, the hillbillies in Louisiana. When I was watching Swamp People, the Cajuns that hunt alligator.
Yeah.
Well, they were trapping and hunting nutria for their furs and for food. Because when I watched, I know certain areas of the United States, they know how to make use of wild game very well. And I was watching West Virginia's Appalachian people, the hillbillies, and man, they sure knew how to prepare and barbecue just about anything that walks or crawls. They were barbecuing raccoon and possum, and the women folk. Even in where was it? There was a woman on an island in Savannah, Georgia, and I'm
Paula
sure.
Jean.
No, it was on the Travel Channel. I think it was. No, it was Andrew Zimmer was visiting her. She showed Andrew Zimmer how they trapped and dispatched, which is a fancy way of saying killed it, and clean, dressed, or whatever, skinned a raccoon and prepared it for stew. So they said that you could stew, you could barbecue wild game if you just know how to do it, and blah blah blah. And this is how they grew up, though, because a lot of them, she says, a lot of the people in these rural sections of the United States, sometimes they were in homes that were far from civilization, and sometimes they didn't have the modern conveniences that we take for granted, and they had to live off the land. They had to farm their own. They had to grow their own food, kind of similar to the way America originally was.
And the Republicans would like to go back to that, especially the poor. They want the poor to go back to that, to pull them up by the bootstraps.
Is that why people had larger families way back when, to work the farm, maybe?
Well, to survive, because, you know, many of the babies that they had didn't survive.
Now, when a couple gets old, you know, if they don't have kids, man, there's nobody to work the farm.
That's correct.
You know, and, yeah,
nobody to leave the farm, too.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, Gary No mentioned his apiary. He keeps bees.
Yeah.
And, the bees like him. They don't sting him.
No, they don't.
Amazing. How did he know the bees were going to like him? He just took a chance.
It's his positive energy.
Wow.
That he exudes.
Well, he is a very mild-mannered, positive man, unless he gets pissed off by the crap that's going on today, which he is, with this fascism in America. All right, continue.
The nutria, they'll go into a marsh, and they'll just clean out all the vegetation in the area. And you'll have these bare spots. They'll just destroy a marsh. Nutria, brought to the United States as part of a fur farming operations, have long been a plague in Louisiana, where a bounty on the rodents was established in 2002.
Well, hey, didn't Burmese pythons escape in South Florida, and now they're a plague?
Yep. Now their population is booming in North Carolina and Virginia.
There too?
Where they were first spotted decades ago.
How did they get there? They were introduced in fur farming
in Louisiana,
but they were seen on the East Coast.
Yep. Hey, they might be moving up here.
You know what else is multiplying to astronomical numbers? European wild boar, because they were brought here for the hunters to bag, and now they're very prolific, and there's lots of them all over the South, and they have razor sharp tusks, and that's why they have a reality show about boar hunters. I assume the sport is not
it boring?
I was just going to make a joke. I'm sure the sport is not boring. Well, anyway, that's good. You beat me to the punch. All right, continue.
The water-loving animals have crossed state lines and came far inland. They've been sighted on the outskirts of Wake County, more than 100 miles from the shore. Officials in Virginia have launched an effort to identify the watersheds and other areas where nutria are most common by having members of the public report sightings. Wildlife experts believe the populations in Virginia and North Carolina are related. So once the nutria are mapped, officials in both states, along with the federal government, private trappers, and other groups, hope to move on to the next phase, making the mid-Atlantic a nutria-free zone, or as close to that ideal as possible. If we are going to try to eradicate these things, we need as many partners as we can get. The problem is even getting attention in Washington, where lawmakers have introduced a bill to fund enhanced nutria eradication efforts in 7 states. The bill passed a key committee last November, and its backers are working to bring it before the full chamber. Senator Hagan, Democrat of North Carolina, is well aware of the growing problems that nutria are causing North Carolina's coastal communities. This all may seem like a lot of angst over a swimming rodent that looks like a cross between a beaver and a muskrat.
Mm-hmm.
But wildlife biologists and other experts say the nutria's effect on local habitats is no joke. The nutria can eat up to 25% of its body weight in plants per day. And it chews plants down to the roots, meaning nothing grows back once the rodent makes a meal of it. They also like to burrow, and some of their favorite spots are retention ponds, and dikes used to control water levels, contributing to erosion and potential water contamination. Nutria also breed rapidly. Females first became pregnant around 6 months old, become pregnant, and can have 4 litters a year of between 6 and 12 pups. Add that to the fact that as a South American import, the nutria have no natural predators in the area. And the region has one troublesome rodent species on its hands. They can create widespread havoc. On a recent job at a paper plant, Hollis, a Mr. Greg Hollis, trapped nutria that were burrowing between wastewater retention ponds and a nearby river. If they get through those dikes, you've got contamination issues, he said. They're pretty nasty, all right. The question is what to do about them. In Virginia, residents are allowed to kill any nutria that cause problems. And in North Carolina, there's no bag limit or closed season on trapping the animals east of Interstate 77.
Well, they're not indigenous to the United States, and they multiply fast. So there's really you can't make an animal an endangered species if they're not native to the United States. So overhunting them is not going to occur because they're not indigenous to this area, and they're a pestilence. Same thing with the Burmese pythons. They have become a danger to the native Florida species. In this case, they're vegetarian, they're rodents, so it's agriculture.
But uncoordinated measures have done little to slow the growth of the creature's population. Being non-native, they cause issues we probably shouldn't have to deal with. Question we have to answer is exactly how effective can we be when working on a larger scale. So, hasta la vista, nutria.
Well, the nutria that should not be that. I mean, look, something. You know what it reminds me of, Bill? Dr. Bill, it reminds me of the Brazilian gentleman that heard that the African bee was much more productive with honey production than the European honeybee, the Italian honeybee. So he brought the Africanized bees from Africa, and they escaped, and they ended up becoming very aggressive, and they were called killer bees, and then they spread and spread and spread and came north. It's the same thing. The nutria were brought to be raised for fur, and some escaped, and I assume a male and a female. That's all that's required is one male and one female, and the rest is history, And they bring them here for monetary reasons, for profit, and then something goes wrong and it gets out of hand. Like with the Burmese pythons, they were in a zoo, and Hurricane Andrew, I think, released them. But that's beside the point. The thing is that the nutria were brought here to farm, and they escaped. So, sometimes you do something with nature because you mean well, and it becomes a disaster.
You mean like GMOs?
Like Monsanto's GMO seeds, genetically modified seeds. Perfect example. The cane toad brought to Australia to take care of some agricultural pest, and now there's too many cane toads that are not indigenous to northern Australia. Yeah, again, Monsanto. Wreaking havoc with the negative side effects of consuming genetically modified produce. And that's not counting the greedy fact that these plants cannot reproduce. They're sterile. So farmers are forced to continue to buy seeds every year from Monsanto. The list goes on and on and on and on. Anytime greed enters the picture, something goes wrong. Do you have a nice, interesting...
I have another on Mr. Christie.
All right, we're on a roll. Speaking of roll, we're on a roll.
It's been in the paper a lot.
We're on a roll. We might as well knock off the Christie articles.
The Democratic leadership in the legislature recently released competing alternatives to the income tax cut Governor Christie has made the centerpiece of his latest budget. The governor's plan is a bad one. Over 3 years, it will cost the state $1.1 billion. And as you might expect from a governor who has made tax cuts for the wealthy a point of pride, over $400 million of it will go to the richest 1% of New Jerseyans. While the 1% will receive enough to pay for an exotic vacation, the average working family will see about $2 a week. That's for those who actually have income. New Jersey's jobless rate is at 9% and ranks a dismal 39th in job growth nationally since Christie took office. Christie has seemed far more interested in protecting the pocketbooks of his wealthy friends and donors than in providing the essential services on which working families rely, or making the investments in education and infrastructure necessary to create jobs and jumpstart New Jersey's economy. The Democrats have focused their attention on property taxes, which place a heavier burden on working families and seniors. But while Senate President Steve Sweeney's plan would simply divert the money allotted to Christie's tax cuts to property taxes, the Assembly plan would provide a larger benefit and include a tax increase on incomes making $1 million or more. Oh, God forbid Mr. Christie ain't signing that, is he?
No, I don't see that.
Asking the state's richest residents to pay their fair share is both the right and smart thing to do. Over the last 2 years, the 99% have been asked to shoulder all the burden of Christie's cuts. Remember, Mr. Christie was bouncing around saying shared sacrifice? Remember those?
Shared.
Shared?
We all must make sacrifices.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not the 1%, though. Property taxes are up 20% for working families because of cuts to rebates, schools, and municipalities. Turnpike tolls are up 50%. Transit fares are up 22%. Tuition is up at every public college and university. And many parents must pay school fees to let their kids learn an instrument or play a sport. What's more, a millionaire's tax could help our economy. A plan that asks a little more of those who can most afford it can begin to undo the damage the Christie's administration has done to the 99%. Especially if some of it goes to making key investments in higher education, mass transit, and our schools and communities. Dozens of New Jersey economists are on record as saying that in a struggling economy it's better to raise taxes on the wealthy than to cut essential services. While the Assembly plan is a better deal for working families, there are even better choices. Over 80 community, labor, environmental, and faith-based organizations have come together to offer an alternative vision that works for New Jersey's 99% and asks the wealthy and corporations to pay their fair share. The Better Choices for New Jersey Coalition has proposed a 99% fairness tax that would ask the top 1% of earners, roughly those making more than $500,000, and big corporations that have gotten a free ride in the last 2 years, my foot, to pay their fair share. New Jersey needs a real plan that allows the state to invest in the basic services that make New Jersey a better place to live and do business. That's the path to an economic recovery that 100% of its residents can share in, and it's one the legislature should support.
Oh, wow.
But we know Mr. Christie will not.
No, because Mr. Christie is made it obvious, like I was saying at the beginning of the show, about the whole world being deceived, Revelation 12:9, that the proof is in the pudding, and what right-wing conservative corporatist capitalists do, besides lie to the American people, is they totally favor the rich, the top 1%, or 30%, or would it be fair to say the top 30% or 1%?
I would say the 30.
Top 30%.
Yeah, they're doing pretty well.
Top 30%, and everybody else beneath that, forget it. You get nothing, and they lie to you, and they blame the Democrats. They blame progressive liberals, and call us commies and pinkos and socialists, and they blame us for our tax and spend habits. When in reality, we don't have a spending problem. We have a lack of revenue problem because we're not collecting taxes from the rich.
Correct.
Okay, you need money to run a country, a government. Privatization, which is the bread and butter, right, of the Republican Party. They love privatization. Privatization has a history and a reputation for not working.
Well, not working. Why do they want to do that?
Because they want to shrink the size of government down to nothing.
And why do they want to do that?
They want corporate plutocracy. They want corporations to control.
They want no regulation. Nothing.
Nothing.
Nothing
So
from the government.
They want a complete.
They want an impotent government.
It's like a complete free-for-all
Yes.
of corporations.
Can do anything they want.
Was it the marriage of corporations and government?
Fascism.
Is fascism. But deregulated businesses will allow them to do anything they want, to go hog wild and run rampant and screw you and rob you and lie to you, and you can't do anything about it because everything will favor them. Otherwise known as a completely corrupt society and government.
And everything dedicated to those on the top.
Right. So this is the Yankee Doodle Dandy, God bless America, flag waving crap that America that has been fed, and this is why Revelation 12:9, like the title in today's show, the whole world is deceived. This is why mainstream America believed the lies hook, line, and sinker, and voted in a Republican Congress in November 2010. This is the reason. And this is the reason Americans continue to believe the right-wing lies. You know, hey, some Americans that are not rich at all, some of them that are poor or middle class, they vote according to their religious cult. You know, if you're or they're running against Democrats because Democrats have been demonized for all these 32 years or whatever. Yeah. And they're secular humanists. They are baby killers. You just can't vote for them. No, they only got two parties. They believe only two parties because the media doesn't interview independents anymore. Right. Who the hell would know that there's 7 or 8 independents running? Who the hell knows this? Yeah, I mean, they think a fertilized egg is a human being, and among other lies, they bash gays. They want to, they treat gays like they're evil, And hey, Ron Paul, Jesse Ventura, and Alex Jones like Ron Paul. He's a libertarian in reality, right? Only for his social stance. Socially, he's a libertarian. He's a libertarian, but I mean, a libertarian is socially. Believes in social freedom, allow you to watch pornography or whatever the hell he wants to do. Now, fiscally. But fiscally, no, he too would want
the government shrunk and this, that, and the other thing, and would want to do away with social programs.
So he believes government is bad, just like the other Republicans.
Well, it's not bad. They don't want any rules. They don't want any orders.
Right.
They want no regulation.
Yeah, right.
And government is the only bigger thing than they are.
Right, except for the military, which you need government for the military. But even in the military, they're privatizing.
Thank you, Mr. Cheney.
Everything that all the supplies that the troops depend on are privatized.
Yeah, and your duffel bag full of clothes will cost you $100 to wash. Thank you, Mr. Cheney.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
And what are the poor soldiers getting paid for putting their lives on the line?
Crap.
And they have to pay out of pocket for everything?
Like about $38,000 a year or something.
So they have to pay out of pocket on top of the crap that they get paid.
Yeah, it's a KBR, Halliburton subsidiary. Yeah.
Similar.
Cheney.
Similar to Newt Gingrich's idea of taking poor kids and putting them to work
As janitors
to help pay for their damn food stamps and welfare. Slave labor for the poor. Look, people. Now do you know why I mentioned at the beginning, Revelation chapter 12, verse 9, the whole world is deceived? Wake up before it's too late. Wake up. I wish there was a popular independent candidate that Americans know about that they can get behind. But I don't know of any except for the Reverend Dr. William J. Eisenman, but I don't know of any that seriously wants to run because the media does not tell you about these independents. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? I honestly don't know who's in the independent candidacy right now, campaigning. I don't know. I really don't know. Is there a particular? It's usually the Reform Party and the Green Party, right? The two biggest parties.
One of those parties. But I would get my thoughts out of parties.
All right.
We really need individuals, and we need to know about individuals. And stump speeches do not allow us to learn about a candidate and the kissing babies and all this other crap.
Photo ops
here, there, and everywhere. These do nothing.
Yeah.
They allow. Whenever you have PR, public relations, it's because you did something bad, and you're trying to cover it over. And that's all these election campaigns is PR.
Yeah.
You know, they test out polls' words to see which words to use, which promises to make in certain. They make these different promises in different states and in different sections of the country. You know, it's ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
So we need some way, some clearinghouse, something where all of the candidates are presented before the public, and each person, we learn about them. And then if they agree with what we agree with, we vote for them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Simple as that.
Mm-hmm.
And take the money out.
That's it. It's the only way. Get the money out of politics. Takes the corruption out of politics. And learn how to write in a candidate. And
yeah, for now, that's the easiest way.
Yeah.
But like I said, we should have some sort of procedures to, like some sort of clearinghouse or something that allows us to see all the candidates, what they stand for, no crap.
Now,
no ballyhoo.
At the polls, most likely the independent party candidates will be posted there. But as far
maybe because you have to get on the ballot. That means you have to have, like for instance, when I ran for governor of New Jersey,
right,
I had to have 800 people sign my thing. My petition.
Did it happen?
To get on the ballot.
Okay.
No, it did not happen.
Oh, so you don't get on the ballot.
Right. So in each state, you got all of that crap. And the two parties, that's a lock. They have that locked up. Look what happened to Grandpa. He had to get 50,000 people on his petition to get onto the ballot in New York in the Green Party.
Grandpa Al Lewis, the late Grandpa Al Lewis from the Munsters.
Yeah.
He had a very popular liberal radio show, and God rest his soul, he's dead now. But he ran and under the Green Party. Now Ralph Nader also ran under the Green Party. So now the Reform Party was Ross Perot. That was
a long
Ross,
time ago, yeah.
and that was Jesse Ventura. So maybe the Reform Party was more libertarian and less liberal than the Green Party, perhaps. I don't know, but nevertheless, we don't know anybody in the independents.
Exactly.
That's the problem. Listen, thank you for joining us for this week's Progressive Discussions. Bye-bye. Say so long to everybody.
So long, everybody. Be good.
Yeah, be good. Early spring, global warming. What can you do? You can thank corporate greed for that.